The Cheshire Murders, also known as the Petit family murders, is one of the most tragic and shocking crimes in recent American history. In 2007, the peaceful town of Cheshire, Connecticut, was rocked by a brutal home invasion that resulted in the deaths of Jennifer Hawke Petit and her two daughters, Haley and Michaela Petit, while Dr. William Petit, the only survivor, was left severely injured. The sheer brutality of the crime, combined with the randomness of the attack, left the country horrified. The case became a national story, highlighting the horrors of home invasions and the profound impact on the victim's family and community. The Petit family were well known and respected in their Cheshire community. Dr. William Petit was an endocrinologist, and his wife, Jennifer Hawke Petit, was a nurse and co-director of the health centre at Cheshire Academy, a private boarding school. They had two daughters, Haley Petit, a 17-year-old high school senior, who was an exceptional student and athlete, and Michaela Petit, an 11-year-old who loved to cook and garden. The family was seen as kind, loving, and deeply involved in charitable activities. Haley was set to attend Dartmouth College in the fall, while Michaela had plans to continue her education at the local middle school. By all accounts, the Petit were living a peaceful and successful life in their quiet suburban home, until that fateful night in July 2007. On the night of July 23, 2007, the Petit family became the targets of a horrifying and random home invasion that would end in unspeakable tragedy. The two perpetrators, Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky, both career criminals with extensive records, had selected the Petit home after spotting Jennifer Hawke Petit and her younger daughter, Michaela, at a local grocery store earlier that evening. They followed the pair home and decided to return later that night. At approximately 3 a.m., Hayes and Komisarjevsky broke into the Petit home through an unlocked basement door. Armed with a bat and zip ties, they quickly subdued Dr. William Petit, who had been sleeping on the couch due to recent surgery. They beat him severely with the bat, bound him, and left him in the basement. The two intruders then went upstairs, where they found Jennifer and the two daughters asleep. Over the next several hours, Hayes and Komisarjevsky subjected the Petit family to unimaginable terror. They tied up Jennifer and the two girls, while Komisarjevsky sexually assaulted 11-year-old Michaela, and took photographs of the assault on his phone. The robbery and assault in the morning, Hayes forced Jennifer Hawke Petit to go to a local bank and withdraw $15,000 from her account, threatening that if she did not comply, her family would be killed. Jennifer, visibly shaken, told the bank teller that her family was being held hostage and that they needed to contact the police immediately. The bank manager called 911, but unfortunately, the police response was delayed. Meanwhile, back at the house, Komisarjevsky continued to sexually assault Michaela. Hayes, upon returning from the bank with Jennifer, raped and strangled her to death. Afterward, the two men doused the house in gasoline and set it on fire with Haley and Michaela still tied to their beds. Both girls died of smoke inhalation in the fire. Haley, despite being severely bound, managed to free herself from the restraints but collapsed from smoke inhalation just feet from the exit. Dr. William Petit, still badly injured in the basement, managed to free himself and crawl to a neighbor's house to call for help. By the time first responders arrived, the house was fully engulfed in flames, and Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela were already dead. Dr. Petit was the sole survivor. Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky were apprehended by police while fleeing the scene in one of the Petit family's vehicles. Both men were charged with multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, kidnapping, and arson, among other charges. The horrific details of the crime shocked the public, and the case garnered national attention. The trials of Hayes and Komisarjevsky were highly publicized, with both men facing the death penalty if convicted. During the trials, The defense argued that the men had not intended to kill the family, and that the fire had been set to cover their tracks. However, the overwhelming evidence, including DNA, witness testimony, and the confession of both men, ensured their convictions. Stephen Hayes' trial in 2010. Stephen Hayes was convicted of 17 counts, including 3 counts of first-degree murder. During the trial, Hayes tried to place much of the blame on Komisarjevsky, claiming that he had been the mastermind behind the attack. However, the jury found him guilty on all charges and sentenced him to death. Joshua Komisarjevsky's trial in 2011. Joshua Komisarjevsky was also found guilty of multiple charges, including the sexual assault of Michaela Petit and the murders of all 3 family members. Like Hayes, he was sentenced to death. Both men were placed on death row in Connecticut. However, in 2012, Connecticut abolished the death penalty for future crimes, though Hayes and Komisarjevsky were still eligible for execution since their crimes had been committed before the law change. This legal limbo added another layer of complexity to the case. William Petit's advocacy and aftermath. Dr. William Petit survived the horrific attack, but his life was forever changed. In the aftermath of the murders, he founded the Petit Family Foundation, dedicated to honoring the memories of Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela by supporting education, helping those affected by violence, and promoting efforts to protect those who are vulnerable. Dr. Petit became a vocal advocate for victims' rights and, for a time, the death penalty, arguing that his family's killers deserved the ultimate punishment for their crimes. His resilience and advocacy earned him widespread admiration. In a remarkable chapter of his life, Dr. Petit eventually remarried in 2012 and had a son, marking a new beginning after such profound loss. In 2015, the Connecticut Supreme Court ruled that applying the death penalty to individuals who had been sentenced before its abolition was unconstitutional. As a result, both Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky's death sentences were commuted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The ruling sparked controversy and disappointment, especially among the families of the victims. Both men remain incarcerated, serving life sentences for their roles in the Petit family murders. The Cheshire Murders had a profound impact on the community of Cheshire, the state of Connecticut, and the nation at large. The crime brought attention to the dangers of home invasions and led to significant changes in state sentencing laws. It also highlighted the complexities of the death penalty, as the killers were initially sentenced to death, only to have their sentences later commuted. The Petit family's story of love, loss, and resilience continues to resonate with those who followed the case. The Petit Family Foundation remains active, honoring the lives of Jennifer, Haley, and Michaela by supporting causes close to their hearts.